Good evening, trading addicts. Welcome to the weekly watch list. This is Jeff Kohler, aka Option Addict, from over at www.tradingaddicts.com. You know, I haven't done one of these videos for a long time, but it's kind of like an old pair of kicks. You know, once you put them back on, it feels like you've never taken them off again. So I'm going to get back into the habit of doing these videos. This week in particular, I thought it was important just to kind of highlight where we're at, a couple of setups. You know, we're heading into earnings season. So, you know, primarily, I don't think the technical picture matters as much. We've talked a lot about this rising wedge that the S&P's been in. And I don't think we're leaving it this week, so I don't think there's going to be a lot to update in terms of market analysis. I think we need to see a couple of weeks of earnings results to kind of see how companies are handling expectations, how they're delivering. From that, we'll get a little bit of a better beat on market direction. The most important thing, though, is that the McClellan, which had reached a positive reading of over 100 last week, has cooled off a little bit. It's kind of offset that super overbought reading with a little bit of a market pullback. So I think if we stay within these parameters, which I think, you know, 1340 to the downside, 1375 to the upside, I think we'll kind of stay within that range. So what's important, though, this week is to highlight a couple of setups, which I think should move independent of the market, which is kind of what we're always looking for, is that separation. Breaking down of the correlations. Now, I like to break up my ideas, as you know, into three different genres. I've got my small cap setups, I've got my bullish picks, and I've got my bearish picks. I got about a dozen in each category tonight. So rather than just rip through, you know, 30, 40 charts, kind of break down some of my favorite ideas and then post the rest on the website. So here's what I'm looking for, and we'll start with some of the longs. First one I like here is Pandora. Pandora's been doing a really good job just kind of quietly coiling up here while the rest of the market's, you know, been doing its thing. I like to look for these laggards because usually when they get noticed, when they're a little bit behind the curve, they tend to make a pretty big move. So for a bullish setup like this, I'd probably set an alert over 11. You know, once the stock starts to get up over 11, it's probably going to challenge the upper end of this range and try to break out to the downside. You know, same thing at about maybe 1030 to 1025. So Pandora is one of my favorites. I got to admit, I love the way that Facebook is looking here. I really do. I mentioned to most of you last week that this was my top pick coming into this week. And I think that once this stock climbs back over about 33, 33 and a half, it's going right back up to 38. With not a lot of people watching or caring. I mean, this is a very hated stock. So that, in my opinion, gives it all the more reason to rally. So again, like the look of Facebook. I think it looks pretty good. Goldman. If you notice, the banks on Friday, market opened up, sold off, went to new lows consistently throughout the morning, afternoon until the end of the day. The banks, though, never took out their lows, and in particular Goldman. And I love this base that's been forming here because I think if Goldman starts to open up tomorrow, next time it trades above 98, it's going to get to 105 pretty quick. So I took a stab at Goldman on Friday with some calls. And I don't think it's too late. I think this is a trade that's very actionable. So long as you can get in before it breaks through 98, 99, this is a great spot to at least try a dip buy. So that's one of my favorites. And then I think you got to keep an eye on energy this week, guys. Maybe not right off the bat. Like, I'd like to see these stocks come in just a little bit more. But I'm looking and I'm noticing that the pattern that really stands out to me here is that a lot of these stocks, they look like they're starting to bottom. Devon looks the best in my opinion because you know with these reverse head and shoulder patterns, I think if the dip gets bought in these stocks a little bit lower, meaning, you know, Monday, Tuesday, I want to see them come in a little bit. But if they start to turn, I think the energy sector looks pretty good. You know, if you look at Baker Hughes, you can see it's kind of doing the same thing. Take a look at Halliburton. You know, it's a little bit of a pullback here to about 28 or so. I'm going to be a buyer there. And then the CJES, which I've been watching forever. Which, if you take a look at this thing, it's been kind of quietly coiling up with nowhere to go. I think if the energy stocks start to get a bid, this stock, which has a considerable amount of short interest, is probably going to be set to rally. Anyways, I'm going at a pretty slow pace. Let's kind of speed things up here. Some of my favorite bearish ideas are pretty much all retail. I think you can short anything retail here. Dillard's had a nice little base up through here, triple top. It's kind of on the underside of that now. And I think if retailers get sold, the thing I like about Dillard's is this all the way down through here. There's a monster volume pocket of Dillard's trades beneath 60. So from a risk-reward standpoint, I think you have to try it. Bed Bath & Beyond. which I think this is a great investment short. The kiss off the 50-day, or excuse me, the 200-day moving average. Again, another big base through here that if stock trades down beneath about 58 or so, should come tumbling lower. What else do I like here? Estee Lauder. A couple of these you might want to zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture, but what I'm looking for are volume pockets, and Estee Lauder has a nice one if it's able to get beneath 52, 53, and it's up pretty close to 55, so you kind of get a running start at that. I like that a lot. And then I think this Michael Kors stock here has got to come in a little bit too. And this is kind of banging up against an old range. I think this 44 is a really important inflection point. Good place to put a stop up above, maybe about 45 or so. But if that level holds, this stock's going to come back down and test some of these lows. Small cap ideas. One of my favorites, believe it or not, is Dang. And if you zoom in on this, let's go to like a 3-month. You can see the prices have been winding up really, really tight here. And I love this pattern. In fact, I'll go down to a 30-day. Take a look at this here. So if this manages to hold, and if Dang comes out tomorrow and starts to get bought, I'm going to buy this first thing in the morning. Because once the stock gets back up above, let's say 680, on the way up to 7, there's going to be a nice little spark that sends this thing up to about 7.5. So Dang is one of my favorites. KITD. While we're on the short-term chart, you can see the range developing here. If you zoom out to the daily, it looks even better. Really, really tight. Big, thin volume pocket overhead. Like that one quite a bit as well. This one, ENZM. No, ENZN. Same thing. Just looking for different patterns like this in various different stocks. This one looks pretty good here as well, especially if it trades above 7. And then last but not least, XCL. I keep coming back to this chart. Something just looks really, really good about it. For the intermediate term, I might pick up some shares and just hold on to this for a little while. But when this thing trades up above 8, it should have a nice little spark to it. So anyways, guys, kind of getting back into the routine of posting these videos. I'll try to do that on a weekly basis. Highlight some of the ideas, post the rest of them on the website. As always, you can visit me at www.tradingaddicts.com. Find me on Twitter at TradingAddicts, or just see me around the way. So that's my weekly watch list, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great week this week.